So I promise one day when I grow up, I'm gonna get this vlogging thing right and not just pick it up every now and then, because I know it's been a while since I picked up the camera. So, but here we are. Right now is kind of another one of these full circle moments where the first time I went to an Alt Muse Co event was last year, when I really started networking really hard. And now you turn around and I am the featured speaker or the featured guest. So I'm headed there. I'm doing a talk with another fellow artist named Anna Chen. They really want to know more about not only my art career, but how I'm moving into running my studio and gallery. So I'm looking forward to going and talking about that. And I guess I'll bring you guys inside and let you see the talk.
If I could get everyone's attention, which honestly, I think I have it. Thanks everybody for coming. This is Alt Muse. I'm Breland, the founder of this situation, and I'm just so thrilled that everybody keeps coming out. If this is your first time, I guess raise your hand. Exciting. I'll do the little spiel of like what this is. A lot of people come to all 11, so they've heard this already. But this is just an opportunity to get out from behind your phones and behind your feeds and see each other in person and remind everybody that you exist and that you're ready to collaborate and that you are creative and passionate about what you do. And it's been an amazing experience for myself as the founder to, come on in. Just to meet so many amazing people that I otherwise would not have found from my natural searches. So thank you for coming. I think it's one of those things that you can come once and that's fine, but if you don't continue to show up, then you're not reminding people that you're here and you're not connecting fully. I think one event, is kind of hard and awkward, and once you start meeting people, you sort of create a unit of folks that you're comfortable talking to and seeing time and time again, month over month, and it's something that now I don't feel awkward. The first month I felt awkward. I don't feel awkward anymore because I know at least 5 people here, and it's great. So we appreciate that, and we encourage everyone to keep showing up. It is a labor of love, and we are excited to give the platform to some amazing local artists. We have our host Anna Chen and Aaron Drummond, who is an amazing local artist as well. And I'm gonna kind of hand it over to them to do our conversation portion. If y'all want to start by introducing yourselves more formally, and then jump right in. Yeah.
Yeah, my name's Anna. I'm an artist here in Charleston. I have a studio at Redux. That's my formal intro.
My name is Aaron Drummond. I am an artist here in Charleston as well. I had a studio at the Refinery for the past 2 years, but now, as some of you may know, I am opening a new studio, which is literally right behind me. That's my studio right there. It's not only gonna be a place for me to work, but also for me to host other artists and show their work, and really a way for me to give back. So let's have the conversation.
Amazing. Okay, I'm gonna project. I'm gonna try to project. Can you guys hear me in the back? Okay, yes. Beautiful. So Erin, if we could start with you kind of telling a little bit about your background, how you came to be in Charleston, what you've been doing since you've been here, just so people who aren't familiar can kind of get an idea of what we're gonna talk about.
So I actually grew up in the upstate of South Carolina. I am from a little town called Greer. So I moved to Charleston 21 years ago. I've been here for quite a while now. And my first year here, I actually had my career sort of fall into my lap. I started working at a frame shop that was also an art gallery. So I started off doing custom framing in the back of the shop. I never talked to anyone. But eventually I made my way into the sales floor and began connecting with these clients and connecting with folks that walked in. And slowly but surely over time, my passion for preservation and my passion for art slowly developed. I did that for 16 years, and then when the pandemic happened, that position went away. You know, just like a lot of things, you know, we were closed for a while, but when we opened back up, the owners decided to run it themselves. So I thought, my 16-year art career down the drain, what am I going to do? Well, that gave me the opportunity to pivot and start showcasing the work that I'd always been doing in the background. And I started selling my own work, and that was 5 years ago, and the rest is history.
I love that. And I also work at a frame shop, so it's a great part-time job. So, you know, going into sharing your own art, from what I understand, you didn't have like formal training or education in terms of school, which neither do I. Do you feel like you ever dealt with like imposter syndrome or feeling like, do I belong in this space? And, you know, how have you grown in that?
Yeah, you know, when I was still just an art gallery manager, that's when the imposter syndrome started. I worked with people that had MFAs and all these degrees, so I actually went back to school at 29 years old and said, I'm going to work on my degree. And that lasted for about 2 years of working full time and doing that, and I realized that that wasn't my path. You know, I wasn't doing it for the right reasons. I was doing it because I thought I need to have what these people beside me have, and so it never really worked out for me. But you know, I kept going.
Yeah.
You know, and then once I started creating my own art, the same imposter syndrome came about. You know, people would ask me, you know, what's your motivation? How did you learn how to do what you do? And being self-taught gives you a little bit of self-consciousness when it comes to that, because people always want to question, do you belong here? And it took a couple of years of struggling with that and asking myself every day, you know, can I really do this full time? And I kept pushing through, and once again, the rest is history. Yeah.
Do you feel like, I know you're really big on being a mentor, being a mentee. Do you feel like there have been specific mentorships that helped you with that?
Yeah, you know, I'll take this back to my first business that I started, and that was 10 years ago, and it was a business I called Charleston Artist Promoters. You know, I wanted to use my 10 years at the time. I had 10 years of art gallery experience. I said, I want to use this to help up-and-coming artists, emerging artists, market their work, showcase their work. And I took on my first 2 clients and did exhibitions for them. And after those 2 jobs, I realized I could monetize on it in the proper way. And that my motivation needed to not be from money. I wanted to help people. I wanted to give these artists a hand, because if I have this information, why not share it? So I wasn't able to do it through that business, so that's kind of been on the back shelf for many, many years. Now that I've grown my personal art business, now I feel like it's time that I can get back to that sharing, and that's part of what Drum and Studio Gallery is about.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about kind of your hopes and visions for this building.
So, I started looking for a new studio last year. You know, the studio I have now is only an 8 by 16 room, so it's very small.
Which is huge for Charleston.
You're right. But you know, it's what I could afford at the time. But now that I have an employee, my business has grown, and I'm just kind of bursting at the seams. So I started looking for a new studio space, and the 2 spaces I applied for ended up, someone else came in with a better offer, or just, wasn't on the market anymore. So I kept looking, kept searching, and found spaces that were too large for me, out of my budget. So I thought, well, what if I can not only use this as a studio, but also find a way to help other artists, go back to my roots, and have other ways to monetize the space. So earlier this year when I was on vacation, my commercial real estate agent called me and said, I've got a space I need you to look at as soon as you get back. So I landed. The next morning I came to look at this space, and as soon as I walked in, I knew this was the spot. You call me woo-woo or whatever you want to do, but I really work on feeling a lot. And this space just felt right. It felt like it was the space that I needed to be in. Secondly, being in this neighborhood, bringing something enriching like this to a neighborhood that has been forgotten about for so many years is another part of my motivation. And also the community that Candace and City Lights has already started. There's a restaurant here on Line Street called Bintu Atelier. So I've got these two thriving businesses that I can kind of piggyback on what they've started in this community. So all three of those things is what kind of let me know this was the right space.
I love it. I'm a big Say Yes to the Dress fan.
Okay.
When you know, you know. It's the right one.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, okay, well, first of all, do any of you follow Erin on Instagram? Yeah? Okay, well, if you don't, pull out your phone and right now. But I love the idea that you want to be a community builder, want to support other artists. Are there some up-and-coming artists that you feel like we should really be keeping our eyes on for inspiration, for in general?
Well, I'm scouting.
The cat in the bag.
No, it's all good. No,
Yeah.
I'm scouting, and I want to create a group show.
Yeah.
That not necessarily will be the roster of artists that I work with, but artists that I've met along my journey. I want to kind of hold them by the hand, and now that I have an opportunity, give them an opportunity. So somebody I've been working really closely with is a gentleman named Demetrius Boone, who is an abstract artist who's self-taught as well, who's a native to Charleston. I feel like he has a lot of stories to tell, so I definitely want to give him some opportunities to tell those stories.
I love that. Yeah, for people who maybe aren't as familiar with your work, I feel like one thing that you really thrive in is storytelling and kind of explaining that narrative in a way that people can really understand and relate to. Can you talk a little bit about how you've mastered the art of storytelling? What story are you telling with your work these days?
My work is really rooted in symbolism. When you look at the fact that I don't have many facial features in my work, it showcases how symbolically sometimes people of color are only seen as their color. When you look at the sweetgrass baskets that I incorporate into the work that I do, I leave them unfinished to showcase that this is a culture that's thriving, that's ongoing. When you see me painting figures almost the same color as the background, it's to showcase that if we don't document and preserve culture, it will fade away into the background. So I use that symbolism to draw you in and wonder, why is he doing this? Why is this technique this way? And then once the curiosity is there, then I get to just hit you over the head with all the facts and say that, there's a lot of things that need to be documented and preserved. And we can do this through visual arts, through storytelling. Those are some of the most direct ways to not only affect people, but to get them talking and to start conversations that sometimes can be hard.
Yeah.
And to, just document and preserve our history.
Speaking of documenting, we have some nice cameras in the crowd, which if you follow Erin, he's a really good documenter. What is your goal with social media, with, not just marketing, but what do you use your platforms for, including his new vlog?
So social media, for someone that's my age, I feel like social media has not necessarily been a challenge, but it's been something I've had to deliberately stay abreast of, and to use it as a tool for marketing. Of course, I run a business. That's the reality of it. But I realize that it's more valuable when people can understand who I am. So I put a lot of me personally on my social media. and that helps them connect with the art. You know, so that's why social media is so important. I want folks to really understand who I am and what my purpose is.
Right. Which works for you because you're so likable. It
Well,
doesn't work for me. It's not working the same.
Yeah, if you say so. Yeah.
So speaking of like being a business owner, I as an artist, and I feel like in lots of fields you have to balance, you know, doing what feels good, doing what you want to put into the world, and then kind of putting dinner on the table and making ends meet. Even like with alt music, I feel like Braylon puts so much of it into the community, and it's not necessarily so much on, you know, becoming a millionaire. So how do you kind of, yeah, exactly, which we love. So how do you kind of balance both of those worlds and staying a healthy business and also doing something that's fulfilling?
That's a great question, because so some of you may not know that I really got my recognition in the art world from being a vendor at the Charleston City Market. And we know who visits there. They're just tourists all day long. So, you know, for years I've painted, not necessarily to cater to those tourists, but my work is popular with them. You know, and I understand the things that they like, and I continually paint in those series. Those are the things that make my business thrive, that give me the freedom to do the things that I have passion for. So how I separate it is, yeah, you know, I put my head down and I paint the things that I know are going to cater to that specific crowd, and I have no shame about it. I've discovered something that people latch on to, and I'm very proud of that. But what I'm more proud of are the opportunities like the show I had at the Miller Gallery in December, where I got to create a brand new exhibit of work that I've never done before. Or the show that I have at the McClellanville Arts Council that opens tomorrow, 5 to 7, if you're not doing anything. If you want to take a drive to McClellanville. Or the show that I had at Brook Green Gardens last year, where I really got creative and took my work into a place where, a time and a place where slavery didn't exist, and did paintings based on that subject matter. So I got to really, I make a point to work hard on the things I know that make my business thrive, yeah. So that I have the time and energy to paint the things that I'm passionate about.
With all the free time that you have.
Well, not anymore, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask one last question, and then we're going to kind of open it up to questions from the crowd. But just, I know you've talked a little bit about, you know, your vision for the studio, but what's coming up for you? How can we support you? And what should we expect to see Drummond Studios in the coming year?
So with Drummond Studio Gallery, it's first and foremost a studio for me, a place for me to go and create. I eventually want to, I think, start an artist in residence program with the second studio that's in there, maybe quarterly. Have a artist that is featured that can come and work in that studio and also have a show, you know, so that I'm not rotating something out every month, but, you know, every quarter or every 2 months or something like that, you know, we have one main artist that we're focusing on, and it gives them the experience of like a residency, yes, without exactly traveling anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I want to put together. I also want to put together an exhibition schedule that runs into 2026 that not only showcases local and emerging artists, but, you know, I'm flying to Chicago next month, you know, to check out the art scene there, and maybe even talk to other artists around the country who would be interested in bringing what they do to Charleston. So I don't want to limit myself to locals. Obviously, I want to support local, and I will have plenty of shows with locals, and I'm excited about that. But I want Drummond Studio Gallery to be a place where art from everyone is welcome. I want it to be a place where when you walk inside, you feel like you belong there, instead of walking in somewhere where someone may make you feel like you don't belong there.
Yeah.
If you get my drift.
Totally.
You know, so moving into the rest of the year, I want to get that exhibition schedule together. And then for Spoleto this year, I am the featured piccolo spoleto artist and I'll have a show at the Cannon Street Art Center. And thank you. So that's happening because I thought this space was going to be open for Spoleto, and with contractors and the city and permitting and all that stuff, it's not going to happen. But the people that run the festival offered me this other space, so I'm happy to show my work there.
Amazing. Woo. All right. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to point at you and say go. Yes, Freeland.
Okay, if you could tell your younger version of yourself anything, what would it be?
The younger version of myself, I would definitely encourage him to take the chance, you know, to not feel like your dream is out of reach, or to not feel like because you don't have a degree or the experience in something, to still strive and go for it. Because if you would have told me 5 years ago or 20 years ago, you know, what my life would be right now, I wouldn't believe it. So I would give him the encouragement to know that like, your life can be as big as you want it to be, because I'm living it right now, and not just monetarily, but just how much I'm able to do, not only for myself but for others.
Yeah, you have to be just the right amount of delusional.
I'm pretty crazy at this point, but it's my life.
It's working.
Yeah.
And I love what you posted, that it's not a dumb idea. It's not. Do it. Ask a question. That's not a dumb idea.
What's kind of your standard medium, and what's your preferred if you had a big one for the rest of your life?
So I started off as an abstract artist, actually. There's a German artist named Gerhard Richter, who's pretty well known. Who does this scraping method. He'll put on layers of paint and scrape it away. Well, I found out about 5 years after I'd been painting that I was using his technique, and I had no clue. You know, so I started off doing really bold, colorful, abstract paintings in the style of Gerhard Richter. And then I went into doing primitive folk art because I wanted to tell more stories. Then I eventually learned how to do the sweetgrass baskets. Now I do mixed media work. So I love what I'm doing right now, but I don't want to get pigeonholed into the guy who uses sweetgrass baskets in his paintings. You know, I want to definitely educate people about the culture, document and preserve that culture, and continue forever working on preserving it. But I don't want that to be the only thing that that I'm known for. So my newest series is the Erasure series, where I'm deliberately leaving the baskets off and talking about how cultural erasure is a real thing, especially in the climate that we live in today, where a lot of our institutions that showcase artwork and cultural things are becoming more limited. I feel like I just want to keep telling cultural stories. So it doesn't really matter what medium it's going to be in. It's really about telling the stories. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I got a kind of a weird one here. You grew up in Greer, so
Yes.
shout out to the country boy.
Yes.
I grew up in Duval, South Carolina. So.
I have been there before. I'll tell you the story after the event. Yeah.
Do you have grandparents or relatives that kind of shape your knowledge on history and the past?
So I have a series called the Matriarch and the Patriarch series. That the Matriarch series mainly because it's dedicated to my grandmother, Miss Dorothy. I don't call her grandmother; she is Miss Dorothy to me. She's the matriarch in everyone's family. Sometimes is the glue that kind of holds everything together. So working on that series, honoring these elders while they're still here. So even though she isn't right here on the coast, and she didn't teach me how to weave sweetgrass baskets, that doesn't mean that her presence isn't a big part of who I am. Yeah. I would go fishing with my grandmother. And she was like the best fisher person you know, because I knew I would always catch something with her. If I went with my dad, it was 50-50. You know? So I have a lot of fond memories of her, and I paint something in her likeness almost every week, just to honor her.
Isn't it funny the stuff you pick up from your grandparents or parents and you don't realize it until after you're like, I think I learned that from them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she lives in me a lot. Totally.
I love that.
Yeah. Got one
In the
more?
back?
Since you're growing everything so fast, what are things that you do for yourself that feel like really grounding?
That's a great question.
Not asking for any reason.
Yeah, things are moving fast and growing, and I mean, honestly, right now in this moment for the past 3 weeks, in my 46 years, I've never been as busy as I am right now. And that's not me like bragging, that's just saying like my life has changed into something that I don't even recognize. So I realize I have to take steps every single day to keep myself grounded. So things that I do, first and foremost, I schedule time to not work every single month. You know, time to get away, even if I'm not able to get away from Charleston, which most of the time I do. But you know, travel is a big way that I clear my mind and reset, and that enables me to come back and hop right back to it. So travel is one big thing. Music is another thing that keeps me grounded. And I think first and foremost, having a network or a system of people that you can vent to, that you can go to with your gripes and your problems, and just get those thoughts and ideas and that stress out of your head, to be able to say it out loud or write it down in your notes in your phone. My therapist gave me some of those tools, and they have proven to really work well for me, because you know, stress will take away your health if you allow it to. And I've been really deliberate about not letting all of what's happening affect me in a negative way.
I love someone in your corner. Like, there are people I call and they're like, if you're mad, I'm mad. Like, we're mad.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of people to be mad at with these contractors lately. So they've come in clutch.
Yeah. What? Who are you listening to these days?
Who am I listening
Yeah.
to?
Is there an album you've been having on repeat?
You know, I'll be honest with you. I don't talk about music taste publicly. I've done it.
Mind him after the talk.
Yeah, I've done it in the past, and I've regretted it. So I'm gonna skip that.
Okay. Fair enough. Kelsey, do you have a question?
I love that question also, but I wanted to ask on the note of, let's say there's a huge deadline coming up in a day that you're like, I need to work, but not today. I'm not feeling it today. What do you do to like get back in the headspace with your painting, or not writer's block but artist block? Like, how do you push through that when you need to?
That's great. You know, so I've been self-employed, supporting myself through the arts for the past 5 years. And the first few years, honestly, it was almost it was walking down a very narrow rope, because I had no one to answer to. You know, so it was all on me whenever I had a deadline, or, you know, if I needed to get something done, or if I just wanted to slack off, you know, so it was all on me. So these days, I really rely on looking at the long term. You know, I try to break tasks down into smaller bits so that I don't feel overwhelmed. You know, for example, the Flower Town Festival was a couple of weeks ago. It's the first time I've ever been a vendor at a 3-day festival. And I've done little pop-ups here and there, or I'm at the farmer's market, you know, cute little things. But for something that's 3 days and 200,000 people over those 3 days visited, this is the first time I've had to prepare for something that big. So as I'm, preparing the work, painting my butt off, I kept telling myself, well, that'll be enough. Surely I won't sell this much, but I kept going and kept going. And I just broke it down, and I hate to use this because it feels so rigid, but I time block. I use time blocking, and I'll work really hard for 45 minutes, and I'll take a break, and I'll work hard and I'll take a break, and that's how I power through most of the big challenging things that I need to do.
Yeah.
And even with that, I still wasn't ready for Flower Town. Every night I came home and painted until 11 p.m. and went back the next day.
Yeah.
So I'll be prepared next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm food motivated. I'm like, one more hour, I can have a snack.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions about Aaron's practice, his work, his experience? Feel good? Yeah? Yeah, is there anything else you want to share with the crowd?
Well, what I want to do is share with Bree here and talk about how last year coming to one of your events was me really putting myself back out there and networking for the first time really since the pandemic. The pandemic, I was so cozy, tucked away, not dealing with anyone. I'd get up and do my work and go and sell my things and then go back into my cocoon. But I realized that I couldn't grow, not only as a person, but as a business if I stayed in that space. So I picked myself up and started finding networking events like yours and like Creative Mornings. And,
Which is tomorrow.
Which is tomorrow, yep. And so coming to the event, one of your events last year, broke me out of that shell, and I continued to network in a major way. And now you fast forward a few months later, and I am the speaker at the event. So that if that gives you guys any motivation, go and network.
Meet Breland if you don't know her yet.
Yeah.
Anyway, segue.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Of course.
Appreciate
of course.
you so
Thanks
much.
for having
And,
me. Yeah.
I do want to just ask everyone to save the date. If you are here in May, we have May 27th. It's a Tuesday. We're going to be at Big Girl. It's a craft shop downtown. So we will have a craft night at Big Girl on May 27th. It's going to be really fun and intimate. So more details to come online. But thank you both for a very amazing conversation. Like that was, I took a lot of away.
I'll give Anna all the credit.
But anyway, this is the time where you mingle, meet people, meet at least 2 new people, please, because that's the point to get yourself out there. Anyway, grab another drink at the bar, but enjoy. Thank you.